But I wanted to get a voice of a Dutchman who understands, happens to be a Jew and an Israeli, but also formerly from Holland. And it's my friend Shraga Evers, Shraga Evers, who also is the head of an organization called Shivat Zion, which is a return to Zion, an Aliyah organization that means calling for Jews to return to land of Israel, especially from places like Holland specifically. And he's going to be going out to Holland in just a little bit. Shraga, if I could ask you to join us. Thank you very much. Shalom and welcome.
Hi, shalom, Erev Tov.
Okay, how was my recap? Was that correct, did you think?
Yeah, it was good. It was pretty accurate. There's something to add to that. On one hand, the whole comparison to 1938 is a bit hysterical. On the other hand, I remember my grandmother was an Auschwitz survivor. She would always say, you guys should go to Israel. She was very Zionistic also, but she was also afraid, of course, what's going to happen. She said the anti-Semitism in the streets, and it was 20 years ago. I remember as a kid. She used to live in the west part of Amsterdam, where the immigrants were being placed. And she said, I already see the signs. You guys should really go away. Wow. My time, she said, it will take my time.
Was she Dutch? What was she?
She was, she's 5 generations in the Netherlands.
Wow.
Yeah, they were.
She survived the Holocaust and returned back to the Netherlands?
She wanted to make Aliyah, but after she met my grandfather, it pretty much didn't work out. So she saw the signs already back then, and we thought, you know what, she's a traumatized woman. It's a bit exaggerated, but in hindsight, I think she might have had a point, because she understood the processes that were going on in the streets back then. I remember as a young kid, the Turkish and the Moroccans, they were the ones cursing at us, spitting at us, sometimes getting into like a physical fight. So like they say in Hebrew, the writing was on the wall. The Ktavet ala kir. So what is something that you didn't mention in the report is that about a month and a half ago, there was a big explosion in the Dutch police management, where it came out that they allowed officers to choose not to be active during demonstrations that are pro-Israel or protect synagogues. They adjusted the time schedules of the police officers that had moral issues with protecting these places.
Wow.
The senior police command allowed that.
Now, did a lot of police officers indeed take that opportunity?
There's a lot of Muslim police officers, yeah, and I think that signal combined with what happened last week is something that's very worrying. And I think
now explain to me where Geert Wilders is in this picture. Explain to me where is he? He's unable to be the prime minister?
Yeah, the coalition right now, the government is very right wing and very pro-Israel. At least 2/3 of it. And the last third is not clear where it's standing, but they're for sure not against Israel. The problem is that the Memsad, the institutions and everything they are very, very, very left wing. If you look at the Dutch people that you mentioned in Holland, they're in the right wing part of Holland. They're called the oat milk elite. They're the woke people, and they don't understand. They do or don't understand what they're saying, but they for sure don't understand that they are the next ones, and they're just being used as useful idiots.
I've heard that a lot now. I've heard a lot of people keep talking about Israelis are very angry, and they keep saying, don't they know that it's all going to boomerang on them? But then again, I think to myself, what does that even matter? I get it. Like, jihadism is gonna hit them as well, even though they're anti-Israel and pro-Palestine. But I don't know if they care. They've lost their identity.
Exactly, that's exactly the thing. They don't have an identity, and this whole pro-Palestine thing provides them some kind of identity. I would suggest them to take religion. There's enough things to do. Not per se Judaism, but they've lost an identity, and they find their identity back in demonstrating and supporting a cause that's very strong. Now, you have to understand that these protests are led by organizations like Samidun and other Hamas-affiliated organizations. and they get a podium at universities, and they are leading the demonstration. They're leading also the shouting, and those useful idiots are repeating it and making it
Well,
very
I
strong.
want to show you another video, Shraga. I want to show you another video that I just remembered that I had. I want to show you this video. Take a look at these folks. These are Dutch folks.
Yeah.
The Dutch church. So you could say that they are being manipulated by some jihadist organization, but those are regular Dutch folks.
Right. Yeah, that's the left-wing church. Yeah.
Is it true that
It's
this
very common.
video was taking place? Because I heard conflicting reports. Did this video take place after the pogrom?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah,
But the
it
video
came out.
I showed you before, that you showed me before, about the demonstration that was actually taken today, while the
Wow.
mayor of Amsterdam issued a complete prohibition of any demonstration in Amsterdam, and they just gathered there in masses, and the police took action at some point, but they allowed them to gather, and that's what's happening. The streets are owned by the Muslims. And I think the people that are the shocked the most in this whole story. Those are the Muslims. Those are the Moroccans and the Turkish kids on the street, or the kids, teenagers, and the taxi drivers. They are shocked by their power. They film everything. They put everything on TikTok. You know what endorsement it is that the White House put out a statement from your party in Amsterdam. They got the biggest adrenaline and endorphin shot you could ever give them.
Right.
They're on steroids.
Right. They just pulled over. They pulled off an October 7th attack in the streets of Amsterdam,
Right.
and they just, it's not
Well,
Gaza.
that's what in micro perspective, this whole attack is nothing. We don't hear anyone that got killed, got
Right.
really like wounded, is in the ICU. People are relatively okay. Just I think they understood what kind of power they have when they coordinate with each other a bit, and that could be only in Amsterdam, but they could also in surrounding cities.
Right. By the way, there is a soccer game coming up in Italy,
Right.
and Israeli soccer fans are being told not to go out to Italy, and if they do, not to show Jewish signs. And it's just like it's like a pathetic situation that we find ourselves
Right.
in. And the scenes are very, how should I say? It's the very opposite of a strong Israel. It's kind of Israelis being beaten up in European capitals. And in that sense, there is a likeness between that and Kristallnacht. But of course, the ideology is not exactly Nazi ideology; it's jihadist ideology. It's related, but
not
it's
very
different.
far from it.
What's that?
It's not very far from it. They just don't have the organizational capacities like the Nazis had. But in their spirit, they're not so far from it. The thing is that if you take away like the police security and the guarding of the Jewish institutes and the Jewish people that are living in Europe, you can get pretty close to things like Kristallnacht. And if we see that the police allows senior management of the police allows officers to choose that they don't want to have a moral issue with guarding a synagogue, then you get pretty close. It's pretty dangerous. That's why the Dutch Jews are so angry.
Speaking of Dutch Jews, I was when I wanted to do a program today, I was thinking about my friends who are Dutch, and I'm like, I remembered that you, Shraga Evers, are Dutch. I happen to have a certain soft spot because I went to Holland and I was very impressed in a lot of ways with Amsterdam and with Holland in general, with the humor and the beer and the museums and the bicycles, and there's just many things about Holland which is very special. You're like sixth generation Dutch Jew, and yet you're going back to Holland in just a week or two, but not in order to celebrate a Dutch Jewish heritage, but rather to help Jews leave Holland on Aliyah, that is immigration to the land of Israel, through your organization, which is called Shivat Zion. I have the website up right now. So you're going out there on a trip. You were going to go only to Belgium, I understand, but you decided to, because of this event, you decided to also go to Holland and to try to convince Dutch Jews to leave Holland, people like your grandma who may have lived there for 5 generations, and to leave and to come to the land of Israel. Tell me about that.
Right. So we were planning to go on together with the Jewish agency, the Aliyah fair in Paris, and we would take responsibility of Antwerp because it's pretty far away from Paris, and service the community over there. After we learned about the events in Amsterdam, we decided to change the course and organize a lecture about Aliyah in Amsterdam, and also have open office for 2 days for people that are interested in Aliyah. And we do this often. We do this every 6 to 12 months. We just identified that right now the personal security of Jews has decreased tremendously, and people are interested at least to learn. They don't have to run away. We're not in 38. They can still take the time and organize. And we prefer to let Jews come in a relaxed manner, not run away, because the better you prepare, the better the klita, the integration in Israel, is going to be. And we also like people come out of ideological reasons. However, people get used to their lives over there, and it's always a cocktail of push and pull factors. And that cocktail just changed. It changed after October 7th, and it just changed a bit more. So we're not in the business of convincing, and we will never use anti-Semitism as a point to convince people. And we always say, let the anti-Semites convince the Jews about anti-Semitism. But if someone wants to make Aliyah, we're here for them to help them in their language. We understand also the cultural differences, and we're here for them, take them by their hand, step to step, through the whole Aliyah and Klita process.
So your organization name is Shivat Zion, which means the return to Zion, which was the movement that Aliyah was called 2,500 years ago in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah. And that was what it was called. It wasn't called Aliyah. It was called Shivat Zion, the return to Zion. And I understand exactly what you mean about anti-Semitism. I want to play one more video that I have here. And this video is about a Dutch Christian from a movement who came to the airport. Let's see what he has to say.
From Presence, revival in the Netherlands, and I'm here on Amsterdam airport, and I was so touched by the things that happened yesterday here in Amsterdam. It was a pogrom, it was like persecution of Jewish people here in Amsterdam, and I was searching for people from Israel here on the airport to say sorry to them and to say that I'm so ashamed of what the people of Amsterdam, whatever culture they had, but the people of Amsterdam didn't protect the Jewish people that were harassed on the streets. So I was searching for them here on Schiphol. I couldn't find them, so I thought maybe it's good to say in a video that I'm ashamed of what happened yesterday at Dam Square and in the surrounding area in Amsterdam. I'm so sorry for what happened. And I want also to apologize on behalf of the Dutch people here in the Netherlands. This is not our country. This is not what we are used to do. There's a group of people that wanted to fight the Jewish people, but I'm ashamed of what happened over there. May God bless you. May God bless Israel and the Jewish people. And as Psalm 121 says, He is the keeper of Israel, and He will not slumber nor sleep, because He's the keeper of His people. God bless you.
So there are folks like that in Holland. There's also the Geert Wilders and Martin Bosma and other people who I know in Holland, which are amazing. And yet this did happen. And in a sense, there's also, forget the Jewish story and the Israeli story, there's also the takeover and the loss of the European culture that is being destroyed right before our very eyes through the jihadist principle of hijra, which means immigration to a place and taking it over from within. It's happening right before our eyes. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's happening in front of our eyes, and that's a fact. It's also very hard to define European culture. what is Dutch culture, what is German culture. It's not related to religion anymore, a long time. So if you have to define a culture by beer and sausage, I don't know. It's very difficult, and the whole wokeism pretty much robs people from an identity. And then Islam is a very strong alternative. It's very clear. They're very clear who they are. They know what their identity is. So they fill up a vacuum of
Right.
the people that don't have a religion anymore. And they
I like
feel
the way that you say that it fills a vacuum. In my opinion, it's actually the first step that jihadism sends in. It's actually a weapon. It's a weaponized vacuum, right? It's wokeness is weaponized in order to vacate identity and then swoop in with this uber masculine control identity, and it fills that vacuum. But I find that they work hand in hand, those two forces.
Yeah, it's very strange. I still never succeeded to understand why the woke side would work together with Islam.
It's one of the great mysteries of the Red-Green Alliance. But the bottom line is that the first step is wokeism. It weakens the immune system,
right,
which is identity, which is societal defense. It weakens all those things. It weakens the family unit. Then jihadism swoops in. And that's what's happened in Holland and certainly in Belgium and France,
right.
in England and Germany. And we're really seeing the erosion. And then you have some countries, let's say like Poland, who are like, no, stop that. We're not going to let you in. We're not going to let you erode our country. And they have a zero tolerance policy towards jihadism. And that's why they're surviving.
If we already speak about Shivat Zion and the era of Shivat Zion that was in the time of Ezra and Nehemiah, there's a lot of similarity between that period and today. The Jews were allowed to go back to the land. They didn't go back to the land, or at least not everyone. Many Jews said, take my money and I'm staying here in Babylon or wherever they were staying. The biggest crime, if you look in the book of Nehemiah, was building the land or building the walls of Jerusalem. And what do you mean
the biggest crime by who? But who?
By the Jews. The biggest crime of the Jews today is building in the land, right?
Who saw it as a crime? The other nations in the land of Israel?
The nations that were living around here. Right. It starts with one group that is against us, and slowly there's Arabs, there's Geshem, and there's like the Aravi, and there's like the Ammoni, like there's more and more people joining the fight against building the land. That's what they don't like. I'm not God's accountant, but there's messages from God saying to the Jews, guys, it's time to go home. And it's not so difficult nowadays to return home.